This show is sponsored by levities.co, raw, edgy, and humorless apparel. Remember, you don't have to agree with them. You have that right. Welcome to Mind Matters, and thank you for joining Dan Ploger and myself, John Krotek. This podcast is where we discuss the critical social, economic, and spiritual issues that affect all of us. We, the people, are in a battle against the forces of entropy, forces that are hell-bent on gaining power for personal reasons, forces hell-bent on destroying the concepts of freedom and individual thought, forces which don't benefit the social order. Thank you again. Welcome to another episode of Mind Matters here with Dan Ploger and myself, John Krotek. Hey, Dan, how's it going, brother?
It's going great, John. Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise, man. You know, it's getting ready to be the Thanksgiving holiday here, and I just wanted to say how grateful I am to have you as a conversationalist with me on Mind Matters, but also just to be grateful for all the wonderful things that America has given to me personally and to my friends and family. You know, so happy Thanksgiving. I'm just honored and blessed to be here.
Perfect.
Yeah. So today you can see Elon Musk, we talk about the bird, is freed. I think he tweeted that out last week, his $44 billion acquisition of the social media platform Twitter. Jack Dorsey relinquished his control. And there's been a lot going on over there at Twitter. There's been like a lot of cleaning house, and I had effectively all but been off of Twitter because of the censorship. And now I'm seeing just a rash of people, probably 99% conservative minded people, are now being allowed onto the platform. And it's really remarkable to watch. I feel like we're part of history, where freedom of speech has been really just a dance of censorship with these digital tools that the tech companies and governments and organizations with their own messaging that isn't with the mainstream, if you want to say that, co-opted these social media marketing platforms, censorship, manipulation, control. There's some bad players out there.
Yes, there are, and it's. I'm trying to find some coherent target that Elon's shooting for. I'm a little disappointed that he hasn't just come right out and say this is free speech and all views are accepted and let it go at that. So apparently he's stuck trying to decide what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed, which puts him not only physically but metaphorically in the same chair as our friend Dorsey. So good luck, Elon. You better come out with some mission statement and some coherent message. I'm waiting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are. I have to say it's been kind of fun there to be in there the last week or so. To actually see people coming back on and being so super excited to be able to give their own, narratives, their own freedom of speech. And, it really boils down to, I think, one thing, Dan, which could be umbrellaed under a bunch of things, but it's critical thinking, it's logic, it's reason, it's common sense. And I think if we're talking about freedom of speech, like you just said a moment ago, people should be allowed on there, should be able to say what they want. And then people listening or reading what's being said in Twitter, they need to make up their own minds. It's not anybody's fault if somebody has a belief, and we've seen this. They're trying to blame these attacks on people in the LGBT community for people just saying, I don't agree with it, and so somebody that's really has an emotional issue somewhere becomes violent and hurts somebody from that community or whatever it is, and somehow the person that said their belief was somehow responsible for that. That makes absolutely no, it's not even commonsensical, that somebody espousing their beliefs. Now, if it's somebody that's saying go out there and do this stuff, then there might be something to look at. But just because you're saying you're a conservative or whatever, and you don't believe in the LGBTQ movement, and somebody in that community gets hurt, it's not that person's fault for having a belief, and they want us to believe that it is. How crazy is that, Dan?
Oh yeah, that's right. You had some incident along those lines in Virginia, didn't you?
We did. I mean, Virginia. We
Wasn't
also
there
had,
an assault yesterday?
yeah, and I think also something in Colorado recently. But any of these attacks that are happening against people from these communities or that community, it's not a conservative's fault for not agreeing with that lifestyle. I just don't see it. I know it's a murky area for a lot of people, but let's be honest here. I mean, there's only two sets of chromosomes, and I don't want to take it down that road, but there's two X's and an X and a Y, and we're born, so that's a biological construct. They're saying that gender is a construct. Okay, well, it is. Technically, you have these chromosomes, and then somehow because you have a belief that you identify, I have an X and a Y, and I'm identifying as somebody that has two X's. It doesn't change the biology. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. That somebody's fantasy would become my reality. Doesn't make sense. So I know that we went from
Well,
Elon
of
Musk and
course,
Twitter to
and
that. But
well, what one chooses to identify as is of very little significance to me unless I'm very close to that person. And that becomes a significant part of the conversation or a significant part of our relationship. The LGBTQ XYZ groups, that's fine. I have nothing against them, and that's fine if you want to identify as that. But when you demand that your fantasy become my reality, that's something I'm not willing to acknowledge, nor is it of any importance to me what pronouns you would like me to say. It has no bearing on anything, no bearing on reality, no bearing on my choices. So, live your fantasy, and with my complete support. I think it's wonderful that you find such grace and importance in expressing yourself in that manner. Next
absolutely.
subject.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you. Yeah. And that's just what this is. I think that I think there's a global conflict or a global ideological war taking place between the individual. We've talked about this before on the show versus the collective. And somehow the collective believes that those that are practicing their right to critical thinking and deductive reasoning somehow has to bow down to this group think collectivist thought process taking place. And I would just like to challenge every single person listening
Yeah.
and say, can you think for yourself? And if you can, then stand up for what you believe is right. And if you stand up for something that you believe is right and somebody else doesn't believe it, that's just the way the world is. I read something somewhere. I don't know how accurate this is, but where a third of the people are going to absolutely love you. Those people that we talk about, man, people that we know and people that know us personally. And then there's going to be a third of the people that hate you. You might know some of them, but chances are you don't know many of them. And then you have a third of the people that don't really care either way. So when you talk about significance, and even on the show, our viewpoints are significant only to those probably who care about us and are taking the time to listen. Those that hate us will probably tune us out. Those that don't care will probably tune us out too. So what difference does it make? It's not going to hurt my feelings. It's kind of incredible. So, if you get your feelings hurt by people you don't know, then you got more going on that you need to look at, and it's called introspection. So introspect, find out what somebody else says matters to you, why it doesn't matter to you, and how much significance in the scheme of the universe does it really matter?
And this preoccupation with assigning individuals to groups is it's intentional by nefarious forces, but it's ridiculous. I belong to, I don't know, and you do, probably 30 different groups. So I can say the European descent, European ancestors, Scandinavian ancestors, of course, white, of course, male. But then there are professional societies and groups that I deal with. And, to assign somebody to one group is an exposure of your ignorance and your inability to reason when faced with facts. It has no reflection on me. It's a reflection on the reflector. So
yeah, that makes sense. So I'm thinking to myself, so why not back to basics? Why not go take a look at yourself or ourselves in the mirror? And why don't we reaffirm today that we are a being of the human being or human race? Why don't we affirm that? That's one thing we can all agree on. We're all humans. We're not cyborgs. We're not, well, I don't know. Some people might identify as an oak tree, but we're human beings. And if we can affirm that and realize that the commonalities far outweigh the differences, then maybe that's a starting place. And maybe that's part of Elon's deep underlying thought process here, is to make everybody realize that we are in this cesspool, if you want to call that, of humanity. And maybe we need to separate, what's positively entropic. We've talked about that. What's negatively entropic, and add something of value to the world.
That's what we were put here to do as humans. There's a mission for us to accomplish, and how well we accomplish that mission is up to every individual. But and if you believe in that mission, then that means that you believe in some sort of higher authority. And I think there is a higher authority. I can't put my fingers on it. I couldn't draw a picture of it, couldn't take a photograph of whatever that is. It's probably not a bearded man, old white man with, wearing robes. It's something that's far more sophisticated and far more simple. I believe I'm a proponent of the law of inherent simplicity.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
That the answers are usually the obvious answers, and things are usually not as complex as we make them out to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When we talk about simplicity, so I would even say that, or, again, challenge you again, are you a troublemaker? Are you just a bystander? Or do you actually add something of value to the planet? And so if you're adding trouble to the planet, we talk about higher consciousness and the concept of karma, and so if we're adding trouble, maybe, you always say that, well, I have a dark cloud following me. Well, maybe you need to think about the reasons why. Maybe it's because you're a troublemaker and things just happen to follow you that way. Maybe not all the time. And then a bystander, if there's something that's happening that bugs you and it keeps going, but you're not doing anything about it, then you got nobody to blame but yourself for not being an active participant. And then adding value, being hateful and stupid is not adding value. That's being stupid and hateful. Why not be positive and look for solutions? And, with all the companies that Elon Musk has founded and started and had great success with, the guy is definitely not stupid. He definitely has added value to people's lives through employment, through rocket technology, through payment systems, through health. So that's a guy that we need to just think about, the value that he has added. And I don't think he's going to ruin Twitter. I have a sneaking suspicion that Elon Musk, in fact, that the figures are already showing that more and more people are watching it in the last 10 days than they did prior. So, what's up with that?
I haven't seen what do they call it? The diagnostics or the analytics, I guess it is. How is it faring?
Yeah, it's more people, more views. It seems like it seems a lot less hateful in there. Maybe the feeds, I'm not getting the right feeds, but it's just interesting because it's nice to be able to see all different viewpoints instead of just one. And I'm seeing, post after post after post where people are saying, I had 100,000 followers before I was deleted. I had 75,000 people. I had 20,000. I had 1,500. And these are all people, real human beings like you and me that were censored for whatever reason. And now they're being allowed back on by the new ownership. I think that's a freaking victory, personally.
Well, yes, so far it is. And I have total faith in Elon Musk's ability to construct and manage a company. He's demonstrated over and over he's very good at finding good people. I fail to understand why. How many employees do they talk about? 11,000 employees or some it's a huge number of employees at Twitter. What on earth do you need that many people for that type of a company? That's nothing more than a communication portal. Why on earth do you need those people? I don't understand it. I can understand that you need a certain element of technical support to keep the computers running and to make sure that you don't have viruses and the sort, and to protect your database. But that falls under the word of security that every company has to be concerned about. So I don't understand why a portal for communication would require more than a couple hundred employees, frankly. And I think Elon is probably asking the same question.
Yeah, I know that.
You don't need fact checkers. What do you need fact checkers for? All you're doing is opposing an opinion. I suspect a lot of those people were ones that were instigators to heat up the conversation, to put more emotion in the conversation, and to foster and encourage, a cascading effect of conversation. That's not fair. That's not being honest if you're Twitter. So, I guess as a former business management consultant myself, I would see in Twitter, just offhand, just a gut feel, that you might need 1,000 employees. And that's stretching it in my mind, but that's probably where I would start if Twitter were my company and I were doing a turnaround, which Elon is doing.
Yeah, some good comments there, Dan. I think that they were losing when he took over. The books once revealed that they were losing like $4 million a day, and remote workers did not want to come back to work. So, I think it was 7,000 employees, and so 3,500 of them either left or he let go or did not come back to work. And it's kind of interesting
or encouraged to leave. They were
And
That's
they got
very
paid. They got,
nice.
yeah.
But when I left, gosh, 3 months worth of salary would have been, what a terrific severance package. That's wonderful. That gives you 3 months to not alter your lifestyle while you're looking for another job.
That's very generous. You know,
Wow,
and it's
that's
kind of
generous, and that's so
crazy generous. You know, and it's funny because I saw some posts being circulated, and people were just freaking out over it that he was asking people to work and asking his managers and employees to let them know what they were working on. That's like business ownership management 101. And why would anybody freak out if the boss is asking you to tell me what you're doing in my company? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
right.
So,
Yeah,
well, there you
yeah.
go.
So
So,
I think his concept was his business practices. I'm not qualified to comment to criticize because he's probably, well, he hasn't demonstrated himself as a great crisis manager, but I presume I would think he has what it takes to do that. But good luck to him. My recommendation to Elon would be come out with some sort of coherent statement and a mission statement that your employees can get behind and embrace. And if they don't embrace that, you don't want them in your company. If you're not going to, if you have employees that are not going to be able to buy in to the mission and the purpose for being, then they need to go. They need to go because they're a cancer to your organization. And I'm
yeah,
speaking as, I guess, somebody that has some knowledge on this subject.
well, that's some great advice. And I would just say to anybody who wants to be on Twitter, tweet your hearts out. But think about this before, you press that button to send a tweet. Are you adding value, or are you just creating more trouble? And that would be my advice. And, all I can say is it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm like you, Dan, I think he'll figure it out. And but a coherent message would certainly be good. And just again, I hope you have a great holiday. And I thank everybody for listening again to another Mind Matters with Dan and John here today. Take care. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Mind Matters. Use your critical thinking. Use logic and reason. Make your own determinations on the critical issues. Stay alert. Stay alive. This show is brought to you by Levities.co, the provocative apparel company. Raw, edgy, and humorless. You don't have to agree with them. You have that right.